Welcome to the American Family Insurance DreamBank, where we believe in the transformative power of dreams. My name is Jenna, and I'm thrilled to have you with us today. For those of you who are familiar with DreamBank, welcome back. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. Here at American Family Insurance, we believe communities are stronger and the future is brighter when people are actively pursuing their dreams. That's why we created DreamBank, an inspirational community destination and digital experience dedicated to dreamers everywhere. From our daily event series to immersive signature programs, there's something for every dreamer. Our offerings are designed to help you celebrate the dream journey, overcome obstacles, and stay motivated. Now let's shift the focus from DreamBank and myself to the highlight of today's event. It's my honor to introduce our esteemed speaker, Moji Igun. Moji Igun founded Blue Daisi Consulting to make it easier for small businesses to practice the world they want to see on a small scale. She combines her professional experiences in engineering, education, and business operations with the deep knowledge she's gained from her personal sustainability journey to help her clients push past the frustration and overwhelm of getting started. Welcome, Moji. We're delighted to have you with us. The stage is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I've noticed that people are saying hi, but they can't say hi in the chat. So if we could activate that, that would be great. But hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm going to get my screen shared. And once we have the chat activated, I would love to know, like Jenna said, where you guys are joining from. I am based in Seattle, and I know DreamBank is in Madison. So I would love to know where everyone is saying hi from. So happy Earth Month. Thank you so much for being here. We're here to talk about one of my favorite topics ever, which is what I do for work and for fun, which is adopting a zero waste mindset. So we're going to talk all about sustainability, how we can personally make a difference, and how we can make a difference as a collective as well. So let's dive in and go ahead and keep talking in the chat. We'll go and I'll take a peek in that every once in a while. Awesome. So before we fully dive into the content of today, I just want to do a quick check-in because when we talk about sustainability, climate change, climate action, anything to do with the earth, we have a wide array of feelings that come up. And so I brought out my favorite tool, the feelings wheel, and I would just love for people to share in the chat one word of how they're feeling right now at the beginning of this workshop. And I'll take a peek at the chat as you come in. So I see people from Wisconsin, from California, from Florida, from Maryland, South Carolina, oh my goodness, Seattle, hello. I see some words: optimistic, thankful, overwhelmed, inquisitive, hopeful. These are awesome words. Curious, eager, hopeful, creative. This is all awesome. So however you're feeling right now is amazing. I just wanted to do a quick check-in to see how y'all are doing because I can't see you face to face. So let me introduce myself. My name is Moji. I'm the founder of Blue Daisi Consulting. That's my fancy title. But I also am the oldest daughter of immigrant Nigerian American parents. I live in North Seattle with my partner and our two cats. Fun fact, although I live in Seattle now, I used to live in Madison, Wisconsin, and I actually worked for a construction company that built the DreamBank office. And so this is a really full circle moment for me to be invited by DreamBank to come speak with you all today. So this is just lovely. What I do for work as the founder of Blue Daisi Consulting, as a zero waste consultant, is I help my clients, who are mostly businesses, find creative ways to keep trash out of the landfill in pursuit of a more sustainable, just, and equitable world. And so my work is all about trash. It's about talking trash, it's about thinking about trash, but it's also about how do we create the world that we want to see and that we want to live in. So I linked my personal Instagram on this page if you want to keep in touch or ask a question after this. That is where I'm most easily reached. So let me talk about the quick agenda for the day, and then we'll dive right in. So first, I'm going to talk about my definition of a zero waste mindset. The name of this workshop, I want to explain what exactly I mean by that. Then we're going to share some ideas of how you can get started and use that mindset to make a difference in your personal life and in your community. After that, I'm going to share some examples from my personal life, from my career, just examples that I've seen around. And I want to show you what applying a zero waste mindset could look like. And then we'll do a little activity, very brief, very low key activity together, just to imagine what a zero waste world might look like together. And then we'll have a few minutes at the end for questions. So hopefully that sounds good to you, and we'll get started. So first of all, a zero waste mindset. What does that mean, and what am I talking about when I say that? Zero waste is a somewhat new-ish term. About the past decade or so, that term has really become popular on the internet. But that way of thinking is not new at all. And so I like to frame zero waste as a mindset rather than a set of rules. There's no wrong way to approach or work towards zero waste. It's so personal. Every journey is going to look different, and the work is so complex that I can't possibly prescribe a certain way of doing zero waste. And that's why I really like to stress that it's a mindset. My journey with zero waste started with the Instagram mania that was happening about 10 years ago, with people trying to fit their trash into tiny little mason jars and prove how little trash they made. And since then, it's evolved to me becoming completely obsessed with gardening and composting and watching the circle of nature work in that way. More recently, it's evolved to me being obsessed with knitting and crafts and trying to make my own clothes and figure that out. And so again, zero waste is an idea, it's a concept, and it can look very different depending on who you are. So I don't expect anyone here to have the exact same thoughts or journey as me. I'm merely just sharing a perspective and point of view, and take what you like and leave the rest. So zero waste could look like this. This is me in my community garden, I think 2 years ago, where I was growing some carrots and some leeks, and I have a bunch of herbs and such behind me. It can look very aspirational like this, even though this is a picture of me and I took it. It feels very aspirational, a little bit out of reach. So this is one way that having a zero waste mindset could look. But it could also look very mundane, just like this, which is a stack of library books, some knitting needles that are both new and used, and some plants that I got for free. And so zero waste can look very vastly different. It can look very beautiful, aspirational, but it can also look very mundane and basic and boring. So I want to offer you my personal definition of a zero waste mindset, which is a lens through which we can adjust the way that we consume and produce through intentional and consistent action. It considers both who and what we consider disposable. So I'll pause and let you kind of read that over. But again, it's a way of viewing the world. It's not a set of rules. It's not a silver bullet solution or an extreme mindset. It's just a perspective shift. It's important for me to stress that zero waste for me is not only about the stuff, about the things, it's also about the people that are impacted along the way. So from the extraction of materials to the making of the stuff we use, all the way through disposal, there are people at every step of the way being treated all types of ways. And so when we think about zero waste, we're not just thinking about not using anything, not throwing anything away, but also the people who are involved, and how zero waste mindset not only affects the environment, but also the people who live in the environment. So I want to share a little bit more about why I am so obsessed with zero waste and what the problem is that we're trying to solve with the idea of having a zero waste mindset. And so this is a comic I found 5 or 6 years ago, just somewhere on the internet, but I've credited the artist at the bottom. And it's titled A Brief History of Consumption, which I think is just such a succinct and classic way of explaining what's going on here. But basically, you see the shopping cart on the left and the trash can on the right. And so it's very simple. I don't even need to explain it, but you see that everything that you buy, whether you buy it online, in an actual store, whether it's gifted to you, whatever, all the stuff that comes into our life eventually ends up as waste. It could be a day from now, a week from now, a month from now, years from now, but eventually it's going to end up as trash. The average American consumer generates about 4.5 pounds of trash per day. Sometimes when I teach this to like high school, college students, I'll do a guessing game, and they have numbers all across the board of how many pounds of trash they think, because we don't really think about that kind of information on day to day. But I want to put that number, that data point into perspective. So let's round up that 4.5 pounds of trash per person per day up to five-ish pounds per day. Multiply that by 7 days a week, so about 35. Multiply that by 52 weeks in a year, so it's like 44,000, I believe, something like that. I can't do the math very quickly right now, but thousands of pounds of trash per person per day. So multiply that thousands number by the population of the city that you live in. Here in Seattle, we're close to 1,000,000, 700, 800,000 people live within the city of Seattle. All of that trash has to go somewhere. Some of it is recycled, some of it is composted, but a large portion of that just goes and sits in a landfill forever. It just sits there. And that wouldn't be a problem if we had infinite space, if we had forever and everywhere that we could put things. But we don't. We live on a finite planet with finite resources. And so when we throw things away and they just sit forever in a landfill, in a giant hole in the ground, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. And it actually gets to be really sad to see all that stuff that so much energy and effort was put in to create just sit. And so that is the core problem that having a zero waste mindset is trying to address. And so, like I said, at every step of the way, from taking things, extracting things from the earth, whether we're mining ore or stones or minerals out of the ground, or harvesting trees or other natural resources, every step of that process, from taking to making and wasting, there are people involved at every step of the way, and there is waste happening at every step of the way. And so the current structure of our consumption is called the linear economy in technical terms. And it just means that it's going in a straight line from take to make to waste, and over again, take, make, waste. What we want to work towards is a circular economy, that kind of swirly graphic on the far right of this slide. So linear economy, we're just sending things straight into the trash. Recycling economy is what we see a lot of with things like paper, cardboard, metals, where we're using it a couple of times, but eventually it might have to end up in the trash. Circular economy is this utopian idea that we're working towards with this zero waste mindset, where essentially nothing is going into the landfill. And that's the world that I dream about all the time, and that's the world that I'm working towards. So we're nowhere near there yet. We're working on it, but that is the direction that we want to start moving towards with this zero waste mindset. And I wanted to show this funny picture, and I have a comic after this, or a meme after this. But again, like I said earlier, a zero waste mindset is not new. I certainly did not invent it. It was not invented 10, 20 years ago. This is the way that indigenous cultures have always existed, and many of our parents, grandparents, cultures have existed for years and years and years. And so I show this picture of these cooking containers because if you're anything like my family, we're Nigerian American, a lot of cultures have these cookie tins, but there's like a running joke of whether or not it's actually cookies inside or it's your grandma's sewing materials. And so this meme that I show a lot is it gonna be sewing supplies or is it actually cookies? And we're using that container for its actual purpose, but also just as a storage piece because we're looking at it with that zero waste mindset. So I show this funny comic because that happened to me as a kid. We're like, is it cookies? Is it cookies? No, it's sewing supplies. Then you get all bummed out because we're reusing something and it's tricking you. So I love this comic. I'm going to pause for a second and take a look at the chat and see if there's any questions. Yes, I see some other people have that cookie tin situation, which is awesome. I'm not the only one. So yes, lovely, lovely. Okay, let me keep going. Okay, so we have all this data, this information about zero waste being a problem, how we have trash filling up landfills. Recycling also has been in the headlines lately of it's not always working the way that it should. Composting is something that not everyone has access to at the moment. And so a lot of our waste is ending up in landfills, either near in our communities or overseas. And so this is just a stock image of a landfill. I have a picture of a landfill that I went to in King County. It's called Cedar Hills. And it was actually too enormous for me to get a good picture to show what was going on. It's acres and acres and acres of just mounds of trash that are either wide open, that are actively being filled, or they've been capped. And it's enormous. And it sometimes it makes me emotional to think about how much stuff is just sitting there for decades and it's not doing anything really beneficial. And in fact, instead it's emitting methane gas that is contributing to climate change. And so when we think about landfills, we think about throwing things away. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And that's why I bring this picture here to make it in sight and just to get a visual of what is going on. So if you think about the last thing that you threw away, it's not to make you feel overwhelmed or guilty, but it's just to say this is where it's going to end up in a couple days, a couple weeks. It's just going to be sitting in a pile just like this. So what do we do about this? What do we do with this information? The very first step that I like to take in moving towards having a zero waste mindset, moving towards action that actually creates a solution, is just to notice, is just to become aware. There's a bunch of sayings about you can't manage what you can't measure. If you don't know it's a problem, you can't possibly address the solution. And so now that we understand that it's a problem, whether it was just now or you've known this for a while, now that we have this information, it's noticing when we're contributing to this issue. And so one really simple way to help yourself notice what is happening in terms of waste in your personal life, or even where you work, is to do something called a waste audit. And I would love to know if you want to share in the chat if you've ever done a waste audit in your life. Basically, it is exactly what it sounds like. It's just noticing, auditing the trash that you throw away. And so there are several ways that you can do this. The way that I do it for work is actually going and basically dumpster diving for a client, pouring out all of the things that they throw away and sorting them into categories, weighing them, analyzing them, photographing them, understanding what exactly is being thrown out and why. If you want to do this at home and you don't want to get messy, you don't have to. What I've done in the past is just taken a little sticky note and put it by my trash or recycling bin and just written down what I throw out. So it might be bag of chips, couple tissues, a paper towel, and just notice that over a day, a week, whatever period feels good to you that you'll keep it up. And just notice. We're not judging anything. We're not changing anything. We're just paying attention to what it is. I've noticed that I'm a very snacky person. I eat a lot of snacks. And so a lot of my trash are snack wrappers. And sometimes I change that and sometimes I don't, but we're just noticing it. We're paying attention to that information. And with that, we can get very specific about our next steps. And so when you see a picture like on this screen with the general landfill, it's very unclear about where to start. But when you do a personal waste audit or a waste audit at the place that you work, you can specifically pinpoint what are the items that are showing up most frequently, and then you can address it that way. And so that's why I recommend just starting with noticing and doing something like a waste audit to get your bearings. From there, now that you've noticed, now that you have a little bit of baseline information, we get into the real work. And I break down the next 3 steps as starting small, habit shifts, and then thinking bigger. And sometimes you might take these as steps 1, 2, 3, and it's kind of a straight line. And sometimes you'll oscillate. You'll start at step 1, move up to step 2, and then go back to step 1. You might jump around. So it's not again, a set of rules. It's just a perspective. It's just a little roadmap, a way to get you started. So I'm going to walk through each of these steps and give a couple of examples of what that might look like. So starting small, there's a proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. And starting small is, when I think about that, I think about that quote. And so when people think about zero waste, when they learn about zero waste, they want to get going. They want to start things and they want to change things right away. But oftentimes it's really going slow and steady, bringing people along with you, whether it's the people that you live with, the people that you work with, other people in your community. Bringing them along with you is actually the most effective way to start small. And so there are some things that can happen at the drop of a hat. You can bring your own water bottle when you work out or you travel, or your own coffee cup to the coffee shop. That's something that is relatively simple and easy. You can get your own coffee cup at a thrift store, you can buy new, whatever works for you. But that's a really easy way to cut down on the amount of single-use bottles or cups that you might use in a day. That's a simple thing. There are things like in the bottom right hand of the screen, like composting, where that might take a little bit of work. You might have to do some experimenting and figure out what type of composting might work for you. There are a long list of different ways. You could do backyard composting, bokashi composting, worm composting. You can compost through a service or with your city municipal composting. So there are so many different types that you might want to experiment and ask questions and figure out ways that work best for you, your family, the people that you are immediately surrounded with. Or even recycling. Recycling, where I live in Seattle, is relatively straightforward. There's a list of what you can and cannot recycle. In other places around the United States and around the world, it's not so simple. There are fluctuations in what can and cannot be recycled. It can be confusing sometimes to know what's recyclable. And so starting small is really about experimenting, taking tiny little steps forward, and just figuring out what works best for you, your specific lifestyle, and the place that you live in. That really dictates what is possible for you in starting small. I would love to know in the chat, if I see some people popping off in the chat, what are some ways that you started small? What are some little things that you might have tried or you want to try that you think will take you towards zero waste? So I see the coffee shop, coffee cup, water bottle thing happening, that you're almost religious about it. That you use your own filters so that you can use fewer plastic water bottles. Those are really easy. Switching from the disposable K-cups to reusable K-cups, all simple shifts that, again, I don't drink coffee, so a K-cup doesn't make sense in my life, but it makes sense in yours. So that's perfect. I see people trying composting in their backyards, beautiful. Using your own silverware and chopsticks at work instead of disposable ones. All amazing ideas, all very small, simple, straightforward things that we can try. Some might work, some will not, but it's all about experimenting and figuring it out. So beautiful. Starting small is step number 1. Amazing. So it sounds like a lot of us are already on that track. Once we've started small, the next step or the next kind of phase is to start to shift our habits. And so the experiments when we're starting small might be a one-off thing, a thing that we try for a week or two to see if it fits into our lifestyle. Then we want to see if we can start incorporating these things into our habits. And so I have some general pictures showing, online shopping, grocery shopping, thrift shopping. And really it's all about how we consume things, how we act as a consumer. And so, some ideas for how we can shift our habits. I think about how I used to grocery shop before I had a zero waste mindset and how I grocery shop now, and they are vastly different. Before, I used to just go to the grocery store whenever I was hungry or out of food and walk through all of the aisles and just pick things off the shelf and throw it in the cart. No plan, no thought really, just what looks good to me, throw it in the basket. And I would have food that would go to waste. I would spend more than I wanted to. I would not have certain ingredients and have to go back to the grocery store. It was very chaotic. Now, going into the grocery store with a list, with a plan, only sticking to really the produce aisle and then like the specific packaged goods that I need, and I'm not just going aisle to aisle with no plan. It seems so simple. It seems like, of course, have a plan, go to the grocery store, but that's something that is a habit shift for me. I did it one way and now I do things a different way. That's one way that I've shifted my habits. Another way is online shopping. My online shopping has dramatically reduced. I used to see things and be like, oh, that's so easy. Just click add to cart and it'll be in my doorstep within 24 hours. So there are so many amazing companies that are able to get us things quickly and cheaply. Now I'm so much more measured about how I shop online because it is so easy, because it's so easy just to get things immediately delivered to my home that I will do a lot of research. I'll figure out if I really want that thing. I'll visualize it in my space. I'll visualize it in my life. I'll look to see if I can find it secondhand. And if I can't, then I'll buy it or I'll sit on it a little bit longer. But the way that I used to shop before having a zero waste mindset and now again has dramatically shifted. And that comes with time. It comes with time and patience and just being thoughtful about how you go about things. So this is something that will build as you kind of flex your zero waste mindset muscle. And finally, this is where I want to spend the majority of my time, the thinking bigger. The habit shifts and the starting small, that is all really individual stuff. That's stuff that you can do by yourself or with the people that are immediately around you. It's not the most challenging work in the zero waste world. That's stuff that you can overcome if you want to figure out a path to do it. The thinking bigger is where the fun really gets to start. This is why I turned zero waste from a personal thing into my career, because this problem of waste is so complex. If only everyone went zero waste, if everyone could go zero waste, that would solve our problem. But there are so many systems and structures that make that nearly impossible for folks, whether it's access to resources, whether that's lack of time, lack of funds, lack of infrastructure where they live. There's a wide variety of reasons why everyone can't just make small shifts or make those habit shifts. And so that's where thinking bigger comes in. That's when the fun starts. And so this is where we get to think about not only how do we consume less, how do we recycle better, how do we compost if we can, but also how do we prevent waste in the first place? How do we get that circular economy where we've actually designed a world where waste is not just the default, waste doesn't just automatically happen, but we've thought about systems in a way where waste doesn't actually have to happen all the time. So I think about examples of this, including repairing, having easy access to repairing our phones, our computers, other appliances. I think about reuse and how sometimes when you go to a restaurant or a place of eating, they give you a disposable cup or plate or bowl, even though you're dining in. And it's like, why can't we just use reusable things and skip the disposable when it's something that could be washed and reused? I think about sharing. I think about how in Madison, back when I lived in Madison, about 7 years ago, And I'm pretty sure this is still a thing, but they have that day where everyone just puts stuff on their front porch and people just shop the city. It's just like a certain day. I forget what, I think it's in the summer. Someone tell me if they know what I'm talking about. But there's a day that everyone just has like a city garage sale basically, but it's just a free pickup day, and people just share and trade and offer up things. There are buy nothing groups that are very similar to that idea, where you post something that you want to get rid of and a neighbor will come pick it up for free. So all of these ideas are preventing waste in the first place. We're not thinking about how do we recycle this, but rather how do we make sure this is actually not really ever trash to begin with. Um, so we have preventing waste in the first place. Other ways that we can think bigger include changing laws, changing the way that policy works in our country. An example of this is something that you will hopefully be seeing a lot more of in the years to come, that's kind of building up energy right now, and it's called Extended Producer Responsibility, or EPR for short. And all that means is that extended producer responsibility means that the people who make the stuff, like our appliances, the packaging for the things that we consume day to day, should actually be responsible for making sure that gets recycled or is able to be responsibly repurposed. It shouldn't be on the consumer to figure out what material is this, where should this go, but it should be on the people who make the stuff to make it easy for us to recycle and repurpose these things. And so EPR bills are coming up all across the country. I believe Maine, I want to say, has a mattress EPR bill where mattresses have a pathway to be recycled instead of just being thrown in the dumpster. There was an EPR bill that was put onto legislation in Washington state around packaging and like consumer goods packaging. So all those plastic wrappy things, foil wrap things, we're trying to figure out a pathway for those to be more easily recycled and have that infrastructure be paid for by the people who make it. So that's one example of a policy that's in the works that will change the way things work to make it easier for us to prevent waste. One other policy I want to share about, just to give you another idea of what kind of work is happening in that space, is called right to repair. And this is something that already exists over in Europe. They're a little bit ahead of us in this space, but it's also happening in the States here, where right to repair means that consumers should have a right to easily and accessibly repair their consumer goods. So the laptop that I'm talking to you from, my cell phone, your TV, your printer, other kind of simple everyday appliances, you should be able to just go to your repair shop down the street and get that fixed if something goes wrong, instead of having to jump through hoops or just be forced to buy a new product, or just be perceived that it's easier to just buy a new product. And so right to repair basically is trying to open up the accessibility gates to make it easy for us to fix our stuff, because we own the stuff and we should be able to fix it. So it's things like that that think beyond just our everyday efforts, that are really about changing the way the world is shaped, again, so that waste is not just a default. Oh, I'm going backwards. Let's go forwards. So now I want to share some examples of what this looks like. These are all pictures from either my Instagram or things that I had on my phone, but I just want to give examples of how taking these steps towards a zero waste world can look like. It could be as small or as big as you want it to be. These are all just different types of ideas. So I'll start in the top left corner and do a little circle just to give you some context. So the top left image is a meetup that happened 6 years ago on the square in Madison, where two of my girlfriends and I hosted a Zero Waste Madison meetup. And it was the first one. We created this Facebook group. We invited everyone we knew. We put it on Instagram, and this is the group that showed up just to talk about this very topic. We talked about the things that we're struggling with, the things that we're trying, and we just chatted about this topic and created a community around it. Later on, we did a beach cleanup together. We did a soap workshop, all kinds of events just to meet other people who are on this wavelength and want to figure this out together. And this is one of those starting small things where we're just figuring it out together. So that was a meetup that we hosted. The next picture to the right is of that little cabinet with some pantry items in it. Those are little free pantries that pop up all over the place where people build little bookcases. Sometimes they actually make them little free libraries and put books in them. But this pantry is just people bringing in their extras, filling things like dry goods, beans, rice, boxed meals, and just filling up community spaces where people can exchange, share goods. So an easy way to, again, think about not just the stuff that you have, but the people in your community, and making sure that we're thinking about our collective well-being as we're doing this work, making sure everyone has what they need. The next picture at the top right is me holding a fish carcass at a composting facility in the International District of Seattle. There is a local restaurant, local composting initiative called Restaurant to Garden, where they partner with a few local restaurants. This one happened to make sushi, I believe, and they had a salmon carcass that they had butchered, and they take those food scraps and turn them into compost at a community garden, and that compost is then distributed to their mostly Asian American elders that have spots in that garden. And so I'm holding up the fish carcass, we're chopping it up, it's a little bit messy, but that is another small way that, again, we're turning food waste into something that's really helpful and beneficial, but also helping the community. The bottom right, that map that you see, is a map of Madison that I created with a bunch of zero waste resources. So I forget what all the colors mean. I'll have to pull up that map afterwards, but there are places that you can fill up your groceries in bulk. There are thrift stores. There are places that you can repair things. Each color means a different thing. And so I think there's also maybe coffee shops that let you bring your own cup. I can't remember if I had that on this map, but just a way for us to wayfind in our communities and find the resources that are available to us, share secrets, figure out where things are able to be repaired, fixed, shared, and share that with other people. And so I made this map several years ago. I shared it in the Facebook group, and it's had thousands of views that I don't know who's looking at it, but hopefully it's helping people still to this day. And finally, on the bottom left, just a picture of tools, but tool libraries are a really wonderful resource that are popping up in communities everywhere where, if you don't have a hammer or a wrench or that really specific tool that you need for that one specific home improvement project, you can just rent it out like you would a library with regular books. You can rent out a tool. Their tool libraries also have things like if you want to have a dinner party with a large group, they have like plates and cups that you can kind of expand your kitchen. I had a friend who we found a cider press that you can get at a tool library. So there are very random, obscure things that instead of buying it, using it once, and then having it sit in your garage, using a tool library to share things with your neighbors is another way to reduce waste. So I am going to look at the chat very quickly, and then I want to share a couple of videos before we move to our final activity. So I'm popping into the chat to see, lots of questions. So I'm going to have Jenna help me at the end to pull out these questions, but I see, there's lots of college towns have those free days. It's not always legal, not always sanctioned, but it happens. So, do with that what you will. Someone dropped off stuff at their free pantry this morning. That's amazing. Or a food bank. Beautiful. High schools in someone's area has free pantries. Amazing. So yeah, some people are seeing some of these things pop up in their communities, which is wonderful. Oh yeah, I wanted to share this really fun picture. I had to dig this photo up. another really random thing that popped up, and I have this email that came in a few days ago. If you live in Madison, Wisconsin, and you want to get involved in things like beach cleanups, this person, Nina, I only went to one, and this is the picture of me at the one I went to. 2018, I believe this picture is from. We did a beach cleanup that has and they do this every single month, and they've been doing this for I think a decade, where they go to Monona Bay and pick up trash. And this is just some person who decided that this was important to them, and they've committed to this monthly and keep it up, and they keep inviting people to it. And so I love to see these like little things that people do to contribute to solve a solution, and do them so consistently that they become like an institution. Like, this is something that's been going on for a decade, and I'm sure there's many other initiatives around the country that exist like this, but I just remember I get this email every single month, and I don't live in Madison anymore, but I wish I could join, because this is just so cool. Okay, so now I'm going to, as smooth as possible, stop sharing and reshare my screen to show you a couple of videos of what I call like zero waste in action. The two examples I'm going to show you are based in Seattle, so that's my first disclaimer that there are things all over the country. I live in Seattle, so I pay really close attention to what's going on here. I'm sure things like this exist other places, but I just want to share what I'm most familiar with. So the first video I'm going to share, if I can make this work smoothly, is from something called the Furniture Repair Bank. And this is, I believe, and the person who created this, Senia, believes this is the only furniture repair bank of its kind in the country. And so this is a very unique place where they take people's furniture. If you have, an old chair that's kind of been scratched up by your cat, or a table that just is a little bit worn down, it's been in your family for decades, they take those old pieces and they make them beautiful again. And then they donate them to refugee and immigrant families in need. And there is so much love and care put into these pieces. I just want you to see for yourself. So I'm going to hopefully very smoothly play this with sound. This is a video that was created for a local media channel here in Seattle. So I'll stop talking and play this video. So that's just a teaser. There's a full video. I think it's about 5 minutes long. If you go to this Instagram post of Repair Bank and Seattle channel, they have a collaborative post, but they talk more about the story behind this work. And I just wanted you to get a little peek of the work that's happening. Again, someone had an idea. They wanted to solve a zero waste problem and turned it into something so clever and beautiful that serves their community. So that's one example, Furniture Repair Bank. I'll show you a second example of a business called Our Fabric Stash. If you've ever been to Seattle and you know the iconic Pike Place Market, this is in the basement. If you go down 2 floors, so it's off the beaten path for most tourists, but this is somewhere that I love to kind of tuck away to whenever I'm in the area. And the creator, Deborah Boone, the founder and owner, gets fabric from all over the world and brings it to this little shop in the basement of Pike Place, and sells old fabric. And it is just so cool. So again, I will stop talking, show the video, and let you experience it yourself.
Welcome back to City Stream from the Pike Place Market, where we're celebrating Black History Month by highlighting some of the Black-owned businesses here at the market. And one of them is Our Fabric Stash, and the owner is Deborah Boone. Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it. So tell me about the name and how it coincides with the business.
Well, Our Fabric Stash is definitely a reflection of a collection of stashes from all across the country and literally all around the world.
So you're not
Yeah.
just local,
No.
you're national and global.
Exactly. Fabric comes from all over. It comes from Africa, it comes from Asia, it comes from everywhere. Turkey.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it does. Comes from
So how do
everywhere.
people get to know you nationally, internationally?
I would say word of mouth, and specifically being at the market gives us that global presence. And folks travel all over the world, and they tell friends, and they said, make sure when you're in Seattle, you stop at our fabric stash.
Now, you've been here since what, 2015?
2015, yes.
But you've been doing this kind of work for a long time.
I have, I would say I came up with the idea in '94, and I should say that the store pays homage to the woman who taught me how to sew.
And who's that?
Her name was Cora Pinson, and she was a city councilwoman in Olympia. And after she passed in '94 is when I came up with the idea, because I viewed her stash as her legacy, and I wanted it to be shared. However, it was so because nobody in her family knew how to sew.
Right.
So it was at that point I came up with the idea. I said, it's her stash, and then 20 years removed from that, my stash looked like her stash.
Awesome. So I'll pause it there. But just wanted to share those stories of people who, again, they had an idea, they wanted to solve a problem, and they created something so beautiful that serves their community for decades and decades. So I just have a couple more slides, a quick activity, and then plenty of time for us to go through the questions. So I shared a bunch of personal examples, some community examples. Now I wanted to share some work examples of ways that we take this zero waste mindset and turn it into something, into the work that I do. So again, a bunch of images. This picture on the left is me doing a waste audit for a little shop here in Seattle, physically working through their trash and figuring out what they throw away and why. This map in the top right corner is part of a program called Reuse Seattle that I work on. All those little points are places, are coffee shops around the city that have so far partnered with us, that allow people to bring their own cup. You'll probably see this little decal in one of their windows at the cash register, and just remind people that you can do that and that they welcome that. Some of them even offer discounts. This bottom right, this compost recycling garbage stickers are one of the resources that our city shares for free with businesses, just to make sure that they have things like signage and the trash bins that they need to be able to properly sort their waste. And then the picture in the middle is just a picture of a community panel that I'm a part of that is helping inform King County, the county that Seattle is in, on how they should approach their waste prevention ideas. And so the county has a bunch of ideas of things that they want to do to help reduce the amount of waste going to the landfill, and they have a panel of community people helping them inform and guide those decisions. And so these are just a few of the many examples I could offer of the work that I do and the way that this zero mindset has transformed from an individual doing individual things into community and groups of businesses doing things to make things a more waste-free world. So with that, I want to jump into a quick, very quick, it's going to be 2 or 3 minute activity that you're welcome to just brainstorm on your own and share in the chat if you'd like, but you absolutely do not have to. The reason I have this picture of Barbie here is because when I think back to the Barbie movie and the press around that, they created a universe with that movie. You could not escape Barbie, and the world that they created was just so vivid, where, you know, everything is pink, everything is a certain way, everything, you know, even down to the set design is just so vivid to the concept they're trying to create. And I want to create that with the idea of zero waste. And so I'm going to put on a slide of just moving clouds, just a very background sound. I'm going to put on some music, about a minute's worth. And I just want us to imagine, you can look out the window, just look off into the distance and just imagine what this completely immersed zero waste world might look like. What are some of the things that you might find in this zero waste world? What are the things that you would hope would be in this zero waste world? So yeah, I want to give us a chance to just digest all the things I've shared with you today and just imagine for a minute. So I'm going to play this slide and some music and put myself on mute for a minute. Okay, we're back. Finish up your last thoughts. Feel free to share in the chat or just stay in your imagination. That's totally okay. I'm going to wrap up by asking, are there any questions? What questions do you have? While you think about questions, while you share what you are imagining, I'm going to drop my Instagram, my personal Instagram handle, if you just want to stay in touch, and also the link to sign up for my newsletter if you ever want to stay in touch with the things I do for work. But I would love if Jenna could help me moderate the questions. So here's my Instagram. And yeah, what questions do we have?
Perfect. Yes, I did see the one come through about the Instagram. So thanks for sharing that. We also had a question. Any tips on fighting the huge plastics industry lobbying?
Oh my gosh, if I had an answer, if I had an answer, there, I will just say there are so many different angles. And the plastic industry is so big. And so I do not have a clear-cut answer, but I will just say that there is so much work being done all around the country, all around the world, but specifically in the US, in the South, in like Cancer Alley in Louisiana and whatnot. There are people who are fighting extraction of plastics. There are people who are fighting recycling plants. There are people who are fighting manufacturing. So there is work being done all over the world in that regard. And just find a group and hop on.
Definitely. Thank you. Okay, so we have one question that we like to ask as a DreamBank tradition. It's kind of a two-part question, but what's next for you, Moji? Is there a dream you are currently pursuing? And do you have any advice for someone who is pursuing a dream right now?
Oh, I love that question. Well, my very immediate, like current dream right now is like I said in the beginning, I've learned how to knit recently and I've been knitting a lot. And so I am trying to knit like myself, basically all of my, sweaters, vests, like I'm knitting myself a wardrobe. And so my dream is that like in a year or two, like in a while, I'll have like a handful of beautifully hand knit pieces that I made. So that is my current dream.
Oh, cool.
And then you asked, what am I like? What's going on in the future? What advice?
Yeah, like what advice do you have to other dreamers out there?
Yes, yes. I live in dreamland a lot. I journal a lot. I have very vivid dreams like myself, and I think about a lot zero waste future. I think about just a more like the world that I want to live in. And so my advice is just to let yourself live in that space, even though it's not always so practical, and then just find the little way that you can turn it into reality. So even if it's just saying the thing out loud, like it would be cool if this existed, and bringing it from your imagination into the real world, that is my favorite thing to do. So that's my piece of advice.
I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Hmm.
Okay, any other questions? Feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll just give it another second or two.
Absolutely. And I shared, yeah, my Instagram and then the newsletter in the chat. It might be lost now, but it's up there. Um, yeah, any other questions? I'm seeing so many good ideas, which is
Yeah,
great.
for sure. Okay, great. Well, I will go ahead and wrap up for today. Thank you so much, Moji, for sharing your time, tools, and insight with us today. What a great Earth Month session. I feel so inspired and ready to do my own waste audit. So to everyone who tuned in, we're grateful for your participation. It's through your engagement that we continue to learn, grow, and chase our dreams together. Remember, you can discover more about our upcoming DreamBank events and access content crafted to inspire and support your aspirations on our website. And if you're interested in revisiting this event or exploring past ones, our YouTube channel is the place to be. I've truly enjoyed learning with all of you today, and I'm excited about the opportunity to connect at our next DreamBank event. So thank you and take care.
Bye. Thank you.